oh yeah, delight in what they delight in. And Zoe delights in Irish dance. And at the time, I was about to miss it big time and go, nope, the dress is too expensive. We can't do that. And God was like, no, delight in what she delights in.
My heart was to create an experience for my 9-year-old daughter.
Yes.
And neither of us had ever been rock climbing. We knew we were in the Colorado Springs area. So I knew I had to find someone who knew the technical side of rock climbing to help it be safe. And I started looking to pay for a outfitter. I started looking, and I mentioned to our friend Greg, I said, do you know anyone that might love climbing? And you not only said yes, but spent longer than I was hoping. We spent a half a day together. And that day marked my daughter and myself, because it was our first time ever climbing. And what we experienced was, instead of just let's go climb the mountain and then go home, we experienced a journey of feeling scared, feeling intimidated, feeling vulnerable, and you kind of gently helping it be a really special shared experience for my daughter and I. And so let me start by saying thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. It was such a delight to be with you and your daughter, and she's a delightful human being. So
I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan. And but it was fun that you got to know her more than just a quick hello, because of spending that time. And what was your impression on, as you reflect back or think about, and maybe you do that all the time? Do you 9-year-old birthday expeditions? Is that all? No,
no, not all the time.
What was your impression of that morning?
Yeah. So I remember Greg reaching out and going, hey. And he was being very kind of like, hey, don't expect you to do this, but do you know anybody that could take them out and that would guide them? And, well, they're it's going to be a special day, his daughter's birthday. And I, there was kind of that moment of, oh, do I really want to give my time to some people I don't know?
Strangers,
and strangers, like, would this be good? But I know enough to know. I mean, I've had a long history of my life in climbing and my life as a dad and adventures with my own kids. And what God's done for me through the medium of climbing, and the people that have mentored me, have taken me under their wing, have in some ways sacrificed their own adventures and joy to bring someone along that's not where they're at in that, pursuit. And so I'm really grateful for those folks and for those experiences that have shaped me and allowed me to shape my kids.
Yeah.
And so, as I prayed about it, I just felt like God said, no, it's going to be really good. And when you mentioned, or when Greg mentioned, it's his daughter's birthday. My birthday is September 13th. So
2 days before.
2 days before. I'm like, oh, it was kind of fun. Like, we're going to go celebrate birthdays together and get on some rock. And so I was really joyful. I think for me, where I really saw the benefit in my own life of being mentored in things was probably it would have been in my middle school years. We were living in El Paso, Texas at the time. And for a young kid in El Paso in those years, that was a rough place to live. My dad was in the military, and living in El Paso, lots of gangs and lots of, I don't know, it was a scary place, is the best way to put it. And I had a teacher that found out that I had done a little bit of climbing, and there's a phenomenal place called Waco Tanks that all of the professionals would come winter there because they could climb in December and January and February. Yep. And this teacher would take me out with them to go climbing at Waco, and we'd end up with these people that were heroes in the climbing world. And they would be like, what's this 13-year-old kid doing on the rock? And it just wasn't common for kids to climb back then, but they were stoked on it. And so they mentored me in it, and those were formative experiences for me. So all that to say, like the chance to bless you and your daughter and make her birthday special was a great opportunity for me too. So I loved it.
Well, we went out for a little kind of coffee, hot cocoa, daddy-daughter. Before we came up, we drove into the parking lot, found you sitting on the tailgate of your truck, and just the walk into the these walls of rock. My heart's beating a little bit fast. I'm a little bit like, again, we had never met before, and we're carrying some of the gear. You got helmets for us. And we had our shoes, and I was afraid my shoes weren't going to fit because I had these huge size 15 feet, and I did have to kind of cry my way into getting those shoes on. But there was a moment where before we kind of got up and going, you pulled a gift out of your pack for my daughter. And that's when the experience shifted for me of like, oh, Alex is bringing he's bringing his heart to this versus his help. Like, I think guys are willing to help. Hey, I'll take somebody water. For me, it's like take somebody water skiing or something. I'm willing to help. Like, cause I do love to see people have shiny eyes and a new experience, but I knew that you brought your heart to making this day a really special day for my daughter and I. And you pull out a carabiner, a climbing carabiner.
Yeah, purple one.
That was purple, which is like, it's not just like it's a color she likes. It's like her shock of like, oh, God is right in this moment when you pulled that out. I'll never forget. And we have the picture of you guys and her just grinning of like, this is a gift. Like, who brings a gift for her? So I wanted to say that moment. And was there any story that I didn't know about with that clip?
So like that morning, I'm coming to do this with you guys, and yes, like my heart was that it wouldn't just be teaching you guys how to climb, but an experience, a growth experience, an initiation experience, right? Like I think we talk about initiation a lot with our sons. But the same's true for our daughters. Yeah. And so for her to experience something at a soul level rather than just a cognitive level is pretty special, and a heart level, obviously. And so I'm like, God, what do I need to know for today? And is there anything going into this you want me to do? You want me to say? You want me to concentrate on? I was praying that morning, and he said, grab one of those purple beaners and give it to her as a gift. Because I have I know I'm a dude. I like purple too. I think it's kind of cool. So those are my beaners, right? Like I've got, I have probably four purple lockers that I had grabbed a while back, and so he's like, grab one, give it to her as a birthday present. Yeah. And it was so cool. Just because it wasn't even so much, it could have been anything, but it was purple. Yeah. Right.
It made all the difference.
Yeah.
And that's when it like shifted. And then there's another moment where you prayed over, and you didn't say, let's gather up and pray. We were just like approaching the wall, and you started praying over us. Yeah. And that was another moment that I was like, hey, that's how I want to bring my my faith and my trust in God to moments, but it wasn't even anywhere on my radar. In that moment, I was so focused on the nervousness within me and the wall, which I think has some parallels to life, right? Of like, how am I approaching this new thing? Am I approaching it in prayer like you did, asking God, is there something I should say or bring? Mm-hmm. You also paused and asked him to protect us, and you asked him for guidance when it came to a wall that you've climbed many times before. You weren't intimidated by the wall, but you still paused with us and helped our hearts go into that dependence. So that was another. Yeah, anything you'd want to share on that moment?
Yeah, like I guess for me, what may be helpful for your listeners to know is like prayer is not something that I grew up learning. Like my dad did not teach me how to pray. I think I heard, my dad was a believer, but the times I heard him pray were literally maybe Christmas and Thanksgiving. And it was the quick prayer before the meal starts, right? So coming into adulthood, having kids, like there are a number of years where I didn't pray at all because I didn't know how, right? And it's something that's been developed in me as I've been mentored and initiated by other good men who have a life with God. And so, yeah, it's kind of funny. Like you mentioned the like not saying, "Hey, let's gather up and pray."
Yeah.
Why do we do that as people? Why do we go, "Okay, let's stop, pause, and pray"? God's with us. He's listening all the time. We can just start talking to him. So, so it's, and honestly, like that, there was a season early on when I was learning to do that, that was awkward. It's like, do I really just start talking to God? And this person's going to think I'm weird. But I've cultivated because I want that kind of life with God, right? I want that kind of relationship with my Father where
Yes.
I'm not thinking about, oh, I should pray as much as I'm thinking, oh, you're here, God. Let's talk about this. And let's invite you into this, and let's invite your protection, your authority, your consecration over our equipment and our climb and all that stuff. So that's become my life with God, and yeah.
I could tell it's who you are. And I knew about your friendship with Morgan Snyder, your your friendship, your service here with Wild at Heart with John Eldridge. I knew about your proximity to these men who I've learned from and know of, but we had never met. And what I got to experience was you bringing just the heart of that you have for men all around the globe. Like you lived it for me. It was just with no expectations and no like, hey, you had to like put on a show for some guy who came. It was just like I just watched it be so authentic. And then on the walk out of the woods, I knew about the story of your circle of friends that all have deep passions that you guys kind of created this hat around your passions. I knew about it, but I was unable to attend the event that this hat was given out for a few reasons, and it really grieved me that I couldn't be there. A couple friends were there, and Morgan had invited me to come the Becoming a King retreat, and kind of the last one too of its kind. Who knows what becomes in the future? But I knew of it, and the last thing I would have expected on the walk out, because you had already gifted half your day and this experience, and it was safe and fun, and you made it took my nervousness down, and you actually helped us really feel like we accomplished and learned so much. For you to take off your hat and hand me the hat, actually, like probably way more than you know, meant like, like it's today's been a gift for me as much as I was thinking daughter, that lens. I was like, oh, this is actually more significant. Like God's deposited something in me.
Yeah.
But you used a tangible gift like a carabiner and a hat. And I wanted to ask did you learn or is God, like, how did you move into this like gift of like to have like a awareness and an intentionality around gift giving?
Okay. Couple things I guess before talking about gift giving, I think, or related to it, I think that time with you and your daughter, obviously wanted it to be special for your daughter because it's her birthday and you're doing it for her, right? But I also knew, like Jeff, your heart in life, all these experiences you're going through with your kids and the ways you're being intentional to be very much an intentional dad are shaping you, and you get as much out of those experiences as your kids, and you've got the harder part of that job, right? Like your kids get to come along for the joy of what you're creating for them. But I know from personal experience, I've got 3 kids of my own, and it's not easy. And it's not easy to be really intentional, and it's not easy to reach out to people you don't know and go, would you help us with this? And so my heart for you is just like, I'm so proud of you. I'm proud of you for the intentionality, the way that you do pursue your daughters, and the way you've you know, yeah, I guess just been really intentional with your processes. And so, so part of me, and that was in the moment, like I hadn't planned on giving you my hat,
Sure.
but just spending the day with you and being like, man, this is so cool, and I love what you're doing, and I want to honor that, and I want you to remember the kind of the keystone moment
Yeah.
with your daughter, and in your own journey. So I was like, man, give him my hat, and that gift giving, it is something that we've. You mentioned my buddies that I do this stuff with. So
Yeah.
four of us, myself and three other guys, Morgan, Aaron, and JD, and they're my closest friends. They're my brothers, and so we, when we were in our 30s, I would say, we're all late 40s into 50s now. One of us is in their 50s. I won't say which one.
Yeah, exactly.
You know who you are, Aaron. And so, anyways, we in our 30s, we were like, man, that in that decade of middle management, career is a grind, and kids are young, and a lot of sleepless nights, and a lot of questions, and we, the four of us, looked at each other and we're like, what we need in our life is we need more joy. Like, and that's the one thing we can help each other with, and that's one thing we can fight together for. And so we created Sons of Thunder Brewing Company, was what we created.
For the purpose of joy.
For the purpose of joy. And so we brew joy. Sometimes we actually brew beer, but we get someone who knows how to brew beer do it for us.
Okay.
But literally, it's just been putting our own money into a venture to create things we love and then give them away to our friends. And one of the, I guess, kind of concepts that grew out of that was the idea of a joy bomb. And so a joy bomb is an unexpected gift and an unexpected time.
Yes.
And so we've cultivated this idea of how cool is it to, in a moment, unexpected, bless someone with something that is an unexpected gift.
Yeah.
And so it was a joy bomb.
And I've used that term on many episodes of this podcast.
Oh, really?
With hardly even remembering where I heard it. And then that's, that gift of grab some brothers, grab some friends, and be intentional about increasing joy. Because we know that the level that our eyes are shining, are sparkling, directly influences our kids and the amount that their eyes are shining. So a dad who's experiencing joy, now of course there's a version of joy in your 30s, in your 40s, in your whatever chapter, that could be joy that's to the detriment to your family, to the ones you love most, could actually take you away.
Totally.
So you need good brothers to make those decisions. But I love how you described God told you about the Caribbeaner. The hat was in the moment. The brewery of brewing beer, that was a multi-year adventure of creating. So there's different ways that gift giving could still, all of them were joy bombs.
Yeah.
And what if all of us dads were more intentional with gift giving to our wife, our kids, our friends, unexpected, moments of taking a half day off work to bring joy in I just think that that's the kind of thing that could really ripple out and is super tangible.
Right.
Would you add anything to that concept of joy?
Yeah, I think I think just what you're saying, right? Like if you can look at gift giving as not just giving someone else a gift, but the idea that, actually that's not just going to bring them joy. Like that's going to bring you joy. There's nothing more like to have handed you that hat and see the look on your face. Like, seriously, you're giving me your hat? Like what? And then to tell you the story of the hat, and it is so joyful for me.
Yeah.
Like I probably got more out of it than you did. Like, I'm glad you're enjoying the hat, but it gave me a lot of joy to give it.
Well, now you get text pictures about every 2 or 3 months. I text you a
Yeah.
photo of me wearing the hat in
Yeah.
some random moment or place. And
Yeah.
another reason, I think it'd be helpful to take the rock climbing story into your family, and actually there's gift giving that falls within this around, I believe it's called a solo dress. So we'll tell the
Oh,
backstory
yeah.
into,
Uh-huh.
just by form of introduction though, you've got 3 kiddos. Your wife, how long have you guys been married?
26 years. August 16th was our 26th.
26. So you got almost a decade of marriage. We're at 17 years. I actually saw the clip from Wild at Heart Experience of you guys getting married, and so I feel like I was there because that's cool. You guys shared that footage. And then how old are your kids? What's the age range?
So our oldest is 21, and then our son, Eli, and then Zoe is our middle one, and she is 19. And then Isaac is 14. So actually turning 15 here pretty soon.
Cool.
So,
very cool.
Yeah.
So, and this is probably my sweet spot of, I love interviews, podcast conversations with just the chapter, so your youngest is still 4 years older than my oldest. It's just a fun window, a peek. And so this is probably part of the reason I was like, we got to get the microphones out. We got to try to have this conversation, Alex. The story of God doing a work in you to specifically pursue your wife and pursue your daughter in a chapter. I know this was years ago when a lot of this played out.
Yeah.
There's just a story that ties in with a gift that now you've had to buy multiple of these gifts, that you've come fully alive in an area that you didn't expect, and you felt like, what am I doing? It might be a waste. Could you kind of back up and tell the story of your daughter Zoe and what it's done for you and her and your relationship?
Yeah, so Zoe got into this world of Irish dance when she was 7 years old. And it was kind of one of those things where, they invite the girls that were dancing could invite a friend to a class to check it out. And
marketing tactic.
It's a total marketing tactic. Like, get them in, get them hooked, and then the parents have to do it. And so she went and did a class with a buddy, and she loved it and fell in love with it. And so, they're like, oh, hey, it's only $10 a class for our beginner classes. And like, oh, well, once a week, like that's no big deal.
It's a slippery slope.
It was fine, right? And then pretty soon she starts advancing, and she's getting better at this thing, and she's becoming competitive in it. And so now it's some more classes each week, and it's getting more committed, and it's actually traveling to competitions. And, it was a whole world I wasn't prepared for. And in this whole world of Irish dance, there comes a point where the girl will earn what's called a solo dress. And so up until a certain point, they just kind of wear a basic school dress that that dance school provides for them. But then they win enough competitions that they earn their first solo dress. I had no idea what that meant until her first solo dress. She earned it. And come to find out, it's about the cost of a wedding dress. Actually, her first solo dress was the same cost as my wife's wedding dress. Oh my goodness. And, I was young dad in those days, trying to figure out income, trying to figure out how do we live, how do we do the things we want to do. And I remember just kind of spiraling a bit and going, I don't know that this is worth it. And I was pretty close to pulling the plug and going, Zoe, I don't think this dance thing's going to work.
Let's try soccer.
Too expensive.
Right.
Let's find you something else to do.
Right.
And so I'm going to leave the story there.
Sure.
And around the same time, there was the catch from God that turned my heart. And in this period of time, God had been kind of speaking to me, going, "There's something you're not aware of that you need to be aware of." And he kept encouraging me, ask those guys, ask your closest friends, Morgan, JD, Aaron. And it just so happened that Morgan and JD and I, they both work with me as well. We were on a work trip, and we were helping set up for a filming that was going to happen out in the desert. And so it was just the three of us. And we were around a campfire that night after kind of securing a site where our film team was going to come in the next day. And so no one was there. And I kept putting off asking these guys the question, and the question God wanted me to ask is, what do you see in my life that I'm not seeing? And what am I missing? And they know me well. Like, we live a lot of life together. And so it felt risky, right? It felt like, I don't know if I want to ask that, because they might be honest, right? And sitting around that campfire, God was like, ask him now. And so I did. I'm like, guys, feel like God wants me to ask you a question. What do you see that I don't see, that I'm missing? And they're like, really? You want us to be honest? Like, yeah, please. And oh man, they were honest. And what they said was, Alex, you're in danger of missing your wife and your kids. You have this pursuit and love of the outdoors, and these are the guys I ride bikes with. These are the guys I climb with. These are the guys I ski with and get into the backcountry with. And that's a deep story in my life, right? And some deep love that I have. They said, you go on these trips, and like what we hear from you about your family is mainly you complaining. And that's really sad. And the kicker was, Morgan looked at me in that moment, and he said, Alex, right now, if I could choose who to be around this campfire with, I would choose my son. Can you say the same? And it hit me right in the jugular, right in the heart. And yes, there was a deep core place in me that could say yes to that. But there's also a lot of selfishness in me that couldn't say that, honestly. And so it was the wake-up call I needed. What do you do with that in that moment, right? These guys say, you're missing your family. You're missing it. Is it like, like try to just become a great dad? And that's the temptation, right? Is like, I better get my stuff together.
Striving, yeah.
But I knew in that moment, like, this is a hard issue. This isn't now I need the 6 tips to becoming a better dad. This was, no, I need God to change my heart. I need God to turn my heart toward Mel and toward the kids and toward my life with them. And so the only response I could have in that moment was, okay, God, I need you. I need you to help me here. And so that began a journey with that. And it wasn't overnight, but it made me start paying attention. What am I valuing? What am I chasing here?
Yeah.
And am I chasing the right thing? So also what came back to me through this season was actually something God had shared with me earlier on. There was a trip that Mel, my wife, and I had gone on, an anniversary trip, and the kids were very young at the time, and we had prayed for each of the three kids individually, and had asked God for, like, what are you saying about each of them? And and they were really cool things. I won't share the detail, but one of the things that came out in that time of prayer was, and at the time it was actually particularly to my son Eli, my oldest, and he said, "Delight in what he delights in." And oh man, that was the rescue of my life with Eli. Eli, in his younger years, had no interest in rock climbing. He's a computer guy. Like, he nerds out on computers.
Sure.
At the time, he would play card fight games, which I knew nothing about,
Yep.
didn't understand. So a whole world of what my son loved that I had no clue about, and that didn't resonate with me, right? And so that was a real guiding force with me with Eli. Well, that came back to me big time with Zoe, where it was like, oh yeah, delight in what they delight in. And Zoe delights in Irish dance. And at the time, I was about to miss it big time and go, nope, the dress is too expensive. We can't do that. And God was like, no, delight in what she delights in. And so if that's an Irish dance dress, her first solo dress, we're going to buy her that solo dress. And so we did. And I've, over the course of her Irish dance career, I don't know how many dresses, 7 dresses maybe. We're somewhere in that neighborhood.
Amazing.
And they've got, the higher and more advanced they get, the more expensive their dresses
Sure.
get. So
Yep.
we've spent so much on
You're
dresses.
delighting fully.
But it's been delighting in what she delights in. And the beautiful thing is just the way God caught my heart, turned it towards Zoe, and then, like, oh my gosh, I wouldn't give up her journey in Irish dance for the world. Like, what it's done in her, how it's grown her and developed her, has been remarkable. And she actually went on to, even the Wild at Heart experience. I talk about that story, and I think back then she was, I forget, like number 2 in the Western region or something like that. Well, she's gone on. She's number 1 in the Western region right now. She's number 2 in North America. This year she was 16th in the world in her age group for Irish dance. So she's this phenomenal dancer, and it's my joy, like,
Yes.
to watch her and watch the beauty with which she dances. Brings my heart so much joy, and even to the point of there was a season in the last, say, 5 years where I gave up climbing. I gave up some of the outdoor pursuits like that I had before, to just be able to have the time to fully invest in doing some of these things with the kids that they were loving doing. But it's come full circle. Like, Eli and I are climbing together now. He's 21.
How cool.
A couple of years ago, he's like, Dad, I want to learn to climb. And so it's gone from sitting in watching him do card fight games, delighting in what he delighted in that I had no clue about, to we're climbing together. Mm-hmm. He did his first 2 leads this summer. So much joy, so much fun for me. But the joy is in being together, right?
Wow, Alex, my heart equally is feeling joy and a little bit of, like, sadness in your story. Partially because my journey with my dad was sports where I was pushed to sports that I was good at to show success because,
Yep.
in that case, my dad was filling a gap of, fulfillment identity as a dad of a successful basketball player, right?
Yep.
He had gaps from his dad passed on. So, some of that pain got passed on to me, and we experienced a lot of healing from that. But the way that you and your daughter, in that video experience with the Wild at Heart experience, you guys' interaction, along with what you're sharing right now, fully all matches up with what I want to walk into with my little girls of delighting in what they delight in and bringing my whole heart to cheer, because cheering parents, that's amazing.
Yes.
Cheering parents that bring a more love when their kids succeed. And that's what I don't feel at all from you because of the way God kind of guided you into this journey. It was actually, you didn't want to be on this journey.
No.
So there's a sweet purity in that,
Right.
like your joy of her, even the way you talk about her success in these competitions is such like, look what God did. And like
Yes.
I'm just like so delighted to be a part of this journey. And that's just threading that. I need to hear God's voice in that journey, but also what you've shared is super helpful for my heart and brings me great hope. But there's a thread there for sure of pain.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think that's where, man, the guidance for me was rescue. And I think for any dad to think through that idea of, because I think that's universal. Like, it wasn't just for Eli when God said it to me, and it's something I've shared with people in the past, and it's rescued other dads I know. But that idea of delight in what they delight in, because delight's a whole lot different than being pleased because they succeeded, right?
Yep.
It's what God does for us, right? He delights in us, and he delights in the things that bring us joy.
Yeah.
He delights in the things that we love, right? And so that's the picture of a father that's pursuing his kids and not putting pressure on them, but I would say putting them on his shoulders to do the things that they have joy to do.
Yeah.
So.
And it does kind of bring us full circle in, I felt God's delight as I got to climb with you and meet you that first time. And so did my daughter. And like we felt it from, like, you were truly like not only there with your whole heart, but like it was delightful to watch you experience that with us. And so just fun how that thread kind of connects the two main stories. Would you say a short prayer for all of us dads listening?
Yeah, you bet. Thank you. Yeah, so Father, we love you. And Jesus, I do pray that you would speak to those areas in each father, into his heart as he thinks about his kids, as he thinks about their life and the journey that they are on with you, Lord. Pray you would speak deeply into that father's heart to see their kids the way you see them. And Jesus, that you would expose the areas that need to be exposed. And you would show those fathers the ways that by delighting in what their kids delight in is actually going to bless them in the long term and is going to bring delight into their own hearts as well. And so, Father, whatever's been helpful of this conversation that Jeff and I have been privileged to have, we pray that would sink deep into the heart of each listener and each dad on this podcast. And anything that's not helpful, we just pray would be blown away like chaff. So thanks again for bringing us together for this time. In Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen.